Tana Franko, who's going to talk to us about creativity and documentation.
Hi everyone, I'm actually Abbott. Good to be here today. Now, as Luke said, I'm Tana Franko. I'm a technical writer at Cisco Systems, and I'm going to talk today about creativity in technical writing. I first got the idea for this talk while reading Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind. And it's variously subtitled either Why Right-Brainers Will Rule the Future or Moving from the Information Age to the Conceptual Age. Now, I was reading this on an exploration day that my boss had encouraged us to take. I was exploring the topic of design thinking, which seemed to have some really useful parallels with documentation development. I was just sort of seeing where things led me, and they led me to this book. Now, it struck me as I read this book that both the need to adapt our skill set and the ways to do so are very relevant to us as technical writers. I realized that the specific recommendations for using a whole new mind to enrich our working lives creatively and empathically, all of them were things that we as tech writers already do naturally. We may not share a job title with creative writers, but there are lots of ways we can and do engage in the creative process. I hope at the end of this talk, you will be energized to find your own ways to develop a sense of exploration and play, to see our role in a different light, and to use and develop the skills of your whole mind consciously. And I also hope to give you a couple of opportunities to start here and now. So let's explore the parts of a whole new mind. So this is based on the sort of traditional notions of left hemisphere, right hemisphere from neuroscience. So on your left, the fox brain. On your right, the hedgehog brain. So this comes from an ancient Greek adage that Pink used in the book that goes, the fox knows many things. The hedgehog knows one big thing. Basically, as a hunter, the fox has lots of information he can analyze, one detail at a time, to figure out how to do a capture. As his prey, the hedgehog sees the big picture. It's a fox. So, the left or fox brain is very good at analysis, processing things one at a time in order. The right brain is better at synthesis or simultaneous parallel processing. We see this in things like facial recognition, where humans really have an advantage over computers that really have to process one detail at a time. And you see this in language too. Now, if we look at text as the language that for most people, particularly right-handers, is heavily centered in the left brain, and then context, so text is what is said, and context is how it's said. Now, Gregory gave a great example of this yesterday when he talked about API documentation and the fact that you can automate the text, but you still really need a human to provide the context. Now, as writers, we want to use both sides. We want to use our creativity and empathy, logically, to create a set of deliverables that's user-friendly. So we're kind of in a transition period right now. We're coming off this information age where, as we know, logic and analysis minted millionaires off of things like software development. So the information age, I think, already kind of exacerbated an already very logic and analysis-driven society, at least here in the United States. And this isn't changing very fast. You can see that in this country if you look at the public schools. Now, many of us over the age of 40 probably remember kindergarten as a few hours set aside in your day to learn to use scissors that couldn't cut anything, color, take naps, and eat paste. Well, kindergarten of today is a very different world. Kids are taking standardized tests from the start. Lots of school districts are going over to all-day kindergarten. There may still be opportunities for unstructured social creative play in kindergarten, but as the grades progress, they're becoming more and more scarce. Creative play, as recesses are taken away and teachers are increasingly called upon to teach toward the test. Even child's play, which used to be, for the most part, highly unstructured, social, and creative, is under pressure from a wide variety of very structured, goal-oriented, adult-led activities. So contrast yesterday's mud play, running on the playground, sandlot baseball, or kick the can, with today's parents shuttling kids from soccer practice to piano lessons to karate, and back home afterward to finish their homework. Our workplaces, too, tend to be very dominated by logical and analytical thinking. Information flows at us from all directions at what seems to be an ever-increasing rate, and the best we can do at times to process all of this is to rely on the default logical framework of time. So we become reaction-driven, in constant firefighting mode, processing the latest request or bit of info at the expense of what we'd actually planned to do with our day. We rarely can stop and see the big picture. As tech writers, because what we build relies on information coming at us from all directions, I think this can weigh even more heavily on us. But yet writers see ourselves as pretty well adapted to this information age. But there are factors moving us all forward. So major forces are causing a change in the skills that workers need these days. Because we're in an age of abundance, a large variety of affordable goods means that factors like design are becoming more important than ever before. Even designer goods are available to a larger segment of the population than ever. Also, as more knowledge workers come online across the globe, the world's getting both bigger and smaller at the same time. Different standards of living mean that if you're doing a heavily fox-brain job that doesn't depend on either an empathic connection with or direct presence with people, chances are someone in another part of the world can already do your job and probably already is for far less money. Computer automation, too, puts jobs that are only based on logical and analytical skills at risk. Computers can usually do that more quickly and easily than humans. There are even companies trying to automate the process, are trying to write code to automate the process of writing code. So all of us is driving us toward the conceptual age. In the conceptual age, skills that give you a creative or empathic edge employed within a framework of logic and analysis will help you adapt and excel. So what's the prescription for actually updating our skills for the demands of the conceptual age? Oh, okay, it's not bad. Close. I call it elevating the hedgehog, making conscious use of your creative skills, growing them, but not to the complete exclusion of everything else. So some of you may be thinking, great, but I'm not the creative, empathetic type. Well, there's an old joke that Pink quotes in the book. There are two kinds of people in the world. Those who believe that everything can be divided into two categories, and the rest of you. My point here today is to tell you this. You don't have to choose sides. You are a designer. You are a creative person. No matter what your role or natural inclinations, you're already using your hedgehog skills in your job and in your life. As technical communicators, opportunities abound to use these skills, but we also encounter a lot of situations in the modern workplace that tend to push us in those fox brain ways. To combat that, and to survive in the conceptual age, we have to make the choice to take time from our busy, reaction-driven days to strengthen our hedgehog brains. Nobody will make that choice for us. So here are the aptitudes that Pink recommends strengthening for developing your hedgehog brain: design, empathy, story, play, symphony, and meaning. As I mentioned earlier, writers do this stuff already, just not always consciously. And to prove it, I'm going to introduce you to a technical writer. We'll call her Tina. That's Tina, the tech writer. Now, Tina uses design at the start of a project to create her doc plan or content plan, mapping out how she'll provide information to her readers and stakeholders, and then designing the deliverables. She uses story in her emails to subject matter experts, trying to figure out the best way to actually get them to spend time on her reviews, and then following up with them when she has stories to share about the documentation they've helped with and how that's helped customers. She uses symphony like the director of an orchestra, well, everywhere. How else could she take an incoherent mumbo-jumbo of specs, user stories, hallway conversations, email threads, and chat messages, and turn that into a cohesive deliverable that at least roughly matches her design? She uses empathy all over the place, too. She carefully crafts personas to understand her readers and stakeholders. She actively participates in product design, taking her big picture thinking and applying it where the more detail-oriented implementation folks sometimes fail to see the connections. Often, she's the only one in the room using the word user. She shows empathy with subject matter experts also, being respectful of their time by doing as much research as possible in advance and carefully incorporating their feedback. She uses play too. Maybe she can't go so far as to insert knock-knock jokes in her PDF outputs, but she sometimes inserts Easter eggs into confidential drafts, just to see how closely they're reading. She uses an informal, playful tone in team communications, kind of like Mo talked about last year in his meeting notes talk, because she understands that play can build the kind of empathy that makes people more comfortable collaborating. Plus, it just makes her job more rewarding. And meaning. Well, Tina's hardly the New Age type, but she does find meaning in using her whole brain, all the skills and aptitudes available to her, to collaborate as a team to produce the best possible experience for customers and stakeholders. So that's Tina. How about you? To paraphrase the poet Mary Oliver, how will you use your one wild and precious whole new mind? How will you distinguish yourself in the conceptual age? We've seen some great examples at Write the Docs. So for design, Joao had some excellent examples of design thinking applied to the doc process with early prototyping and iterative refinement of content. For story, several folks talked about the importance of story. Matt used some great examples, and Karen talked about the importance of storytelling in helping people remember things. For symphony, sorry, I'm having a little throat issues this week. For symphony, Maria gave a nice example in her talk of looking at all of the stakeholders who use documentation as a big picture in the organization and outlining the types of content that are useful for each. For empathy, well, pretty much everyone touches on empathy. It's kind of a cornerstone for us. But I particularly appreciated Jody and Arthur talking about how both writers and testers are the voice of the customer. And I think they demonstrated a lot of empathy in how they collaborated as well. And then on play, well, Karen sang for us, showed us a brain on the toilet, and talked about literally giving out cookies. And then for meaning, I think each speaker builds meaning into their own talk. But as part of the Abbott and Costello duo, as attendees, we also have our own duty to bring meaning to the conference for ourselves. So what will you own? What will you take away? You're the only one who can make these connections unique to yourself. So in conclusion here, we are in an age of abundance. Use it to your advantage. Your calculating fox mind may be whispering words of fear and scarcity to you. Don't copy, don't make mistakes. But really bring out that hedgehog mind, the inner child who played with creative abandon, unafraid of missteps. Give it some time to play. Creative ideas abound. If nothing comes to you, go out and find what others have done and start from there. Pink's got some great starter ideas in the book as well. And once you start consciously working these muscles, I guarantee you'll feel a difference. I know I have. So I'm done with my talk, and now what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to participate in a couple of activities so you can flex your creative muscles. Now, okay, wait. I know you guys, I've tried this with other writers. There are no right or wrong answers here, people. Don't panic, okay? So what I'd like you to do, this is a short activity based on StoryCorps. If you haven't heard of StoryCorps, it's a national project to instruct and inspire Americans to record each other's stories in sound. They have story booths in Atlanta, Chicago, and San Francisco, and a mobile story booth that's visited over 1,800 cities around the country. Now they've got an app too, so you can do this at home. You can interview your friends or family or coworkers or random strangers off the street who might think you're kind of weird, but we're going to try this here. So I'd like you, if you're willing and able, to put your computers and cell phones down for a little bit and stand up, kind of find the person next to you and shake his or her hand. That's important, even if you already know each other. This is how we pair you up here. And if you're left out, just kind of find somebody, go butt in with another pair. And I'm just going to give you a few minutes to ask these questions back and forth. Okay. Okay, you guys are way better at socializing than I was expecting. I got one more thing here. So, this is a little design activity. Again, don't panic. No right or wrong answers here, but this is just a situation to maybe, put on your design cap and think about. So the situation is that friendly aliens are coming to Portland for Write the Docs North America 2016. They've never been to the planet before. They don't know our processes and tools, and Tina wants to provide some form of user assistance for them. And so you guys can help her if you so choose. So you can do this together if you'd like, or in groups, your same pairs or whatever. And so the sky's the limit here if you'd like to do this later. We had a question? Is it a question? Well, see, that's part of the design. Okay, so you guys can I'm going to kind of leave you with this situation, and then I've got my contact info here, so just remember this in your brains, because it's going to disappear. So, if you'd like to send me your ideas, here's my contact info. I'm on all the major social networks, and so use this email address if you'd like to send me your ideas about the aliens, or maybe just want to tell someone how awesome you are, and I'll listen to that too. So, thank you all for your time.